Welcome to Quantum Rebel Visionary Voices Unleashed. I'm your host, Chindia Ilonka, visionary catalyst, Amazon #1 best-selling author of Quantum Rebel, and the creator of the Quantum Empire Mastermind, where we activate soul-led visionaries, impact-driven entrepreneurs, and thought leaders into sovereign expansion to build empires that elevate humanity and architect wealth as sacred amplification for yourself, your community, and the world. And today we're stepping into a powerful conversation that might just shift the way you think about growth, success, and what it truly means to scale your business in today's world. Because what if the key to scaling wasn't about doing more, but about connecting more deeply? You see, so many brilliant coaches, healers, speakers, thought leaders are stuck in this cycle of chasing launches, building funnels, trying to keep up with a model that really leaves them feeling like they're giving everything and still not seeing sustainable growth. But what if there was another way? Today's visionary guest is not only challenging the old paradigm, he's offering a more aligned path forward. Jay Fairbrother, known to many as the Mastermind Guy, is a serial entrepreneur and business coach with over 30 years of experience starting, scaling, and selling seven-figure businesses. But his most powerful transformation began in the aftermath of the 2010 financial crash, when he lost everything and chose to rebuild not through hustle, but through connection. It was inside a mastermind where he was surrounded by his peers who really saw his brilliance that Jay reclaimed his purpose and redefined his path. And today he's on a mission to empower purpose-driven entrepreneurs to scale sustainably by designing intimate, high-level mastermind experiences that fuel both transformation and high-ticket growth. His approach blends authenticity and strategy, helping clients deepen their impact while simplifying their business models. Because as Jay puts it, you don't need more clients. You need the right clients. Fewer, better, longer. So if you're ready to move beyond the stress of traditional scaling models and instead build recurring revenue with clarity, intention, and real transformation at the center, then this conversation will offer you a refreshing lens on what is truly possible. So grab your journal, tune in, and lean forward, because this is where visionary leadership meets meaningful connection and elevated results. Before we dive into this extraordinary conversation, though, let's set the frequency for where we're heading. Because Quantum Rebel Visionary Voices Unleashed isn't just a podcast. It's a frequency, it's a portal, and an activation. And this next moment is the gateway. Welcome to Quantum Rebel Visionary Voices Unleashed, a sacred transmission for a world that's not just remembering, but reimagining and co-creating what's next. This isn't just a podcast. It's a portal, a frequency, a call into the next evolution of leadership. Not the kind that conquers or controls, but the kind that co-creates. We're not here to choose profit or purpose, success or sustainability, achievement or balance. We're here to bridge the false divide and shape the future through frequency, not force. Led by visionaries, quantum rebels to be precise, who lead from essence, transmit from quantum intelligence, and magnetize from their soul-aligned core. This is how we build our quantum empires, not from ego, but from essence, not to dominate, but to co-create. We allow wealth to flow through us as a sacred conduit for expansion, harmony, and elevation for all. I'm your host, Chindia Ilonka, founder and visionary catalyst of Quantum Rebel and the Quantum Empire Mastermind, igniting a new era of embodied soul-led leadership, intuitive mastery, and legacy-level impact. And while once we walked alone, the tides have turned. Like starling birds, in synchrony, elephant herds remembering ancient paths, dolphin pods moving through flow, and wolf packs leading through deep intuitive resonance. We rise together. The era of the lone visionary is over. This is the rise of the Quantum Rebel Collective. You're not here by chance. You're here because your voice carries the quantum codes for a newly emerging, sustainable, thriving world. Let's begin. All right. Let us bring back into the room our dear friend, our amazing person, Jay Fairbrother. Thank you, Jay. Let's dive in immediately. You know, Jay, every conversation is different, and where we start is different. You have an amazing story, but I think the most beautiful part for us to start is what I said in the introduction about you really, through the life you've lived and what you're doing right now, having touched upon a shift in the way we scale. And you're seeing a gap and you are bringing us into a more aligned future. So, how about we start there, Jay? Tell us about that.
Sure. And Ilonka, I'm thrilled to be here. I'm thrilled to be a quantum rebel and part of the empire. So thank you for the beautiful introduction and that beautiful video, which almost brought me to tears because it's so relevant and just so right on point. So
thank you.
To answer your question, so when we are thought leaders, coaches, healers, consultants, we are taught and model by the industry that basically keeps us playing small. And what I mean by that is that we're taught this model where there's an ascension ladder that you build your coaching business around offering first freebie items, maybe even free coaching, then a low ticket offer, then like a mid ticket offer, which is often a signature course, then a group coaching program, and then maybe someday you can graduate like most of the 7 and 8 figure entrepreneurs and create a high ticket mastermind.
Yeah.
And to me, that keeps you in that state of struggle and churn and hustle for far too long. And my own story is a testament to that. Because when I started this version of what I'm doing, even though I knew intuitively, I knew what to do. But like many others that, when we start out, we start buying programs, we start hiring coaches, and we follow this sort of ladder model that's taught by the industry.
Yeah.
And I did that. I created a low ticket offer and I created my signature course. And it was probably the 4th or 5th time after I launched that signature course. And I'm looking at my numbers going, what is wrong? What am I doing wrong? And I went to my 2 mentors at the time, showed them my numbers, and they said, Jay, you're not doing anything wrong. You're hitting industry averages with these launches.
Wow.
And I was like, oh my God, I'm going to have to launch like 9 or 10 times a year just to make a sustainable living.
Yeah.
And so because I didn't follow my intuition, I spent 18 months struggling. And guess what happened? As soon as I launched my high ticket mastermind, 6 months later, I had tripled my revenue.
Wow.
And if more thought leaders would go with a direct line to creating a high ticket program, my opinion, the mastermind model is the best high ticket program to offer. But the sooner you get to offering a high ticket program, the sooner you create that stability and the recurring revenue and get out of that sort of mode where it's constant launch, constantly chasing clients.
Kind of like the gerbil.
Like the hamster wheel.
That's great that you say that, Jay. But what I like about what you say is that you're not just talking about a high ticket offer. You're really talking about the mastermind, the high ticket mastermind. And I know, tell us about how, I mean, the word is like overused. So it's kind of, everybody uses it in some way, but you use it in a very specific way so that it can help you to scale in a way that is exponential rather than that one chronological little step at a time. Can you dive a little bit deeper into that?
Yeah, let's start at the beginning and let's define mastermind. Because you're right. I would say 75-80% of what is labeled a mastermind in the coaching industry is really just a glorified group coaching program where people show up, pray to the altar of the guru. There's some Q&A, maybe a hot seat for good measure, but they call it a mastermind because that's sexier and they can charge more money, right?
Yeah.
So you go back to the beginning, about 90 years ago, Napoleon Hill coined the term mastermind. And the concept was very simple. You put one brain in a room with a second brain, and it creates this third invisible, intangible force that he called the mastermind. Imagine putting 8 to 14 brains in the same room, the size of the invisible, intangible force that you create when you tap into the collective experience, collective wisdom, collective knowledge of everybody in the room. You bring out the value that everyone can contribute. And so what you do in the mastermind is you transfer your program from a one-to-guru relationship to a one-to-many relationship.
Yeah.
And so in a mastermind, unlike group coaching, you are intentional about forming relationships, human connection, with the participants who are going through the program together. They become a posse, a tribe, an inner circle, what I call a family of choice, where the group's mission is not only to succeed as individuals within the group, but to help everyone in the group grow and thrive and take things to the next level.
All right. And I know a little bit about this, your background, because I am in one of your masterminds, just to say that. But you have a really moving story as to how you got to really, that this became your mission. Do you mind sharing that with us, Jay?
Sure. So I started my first company 30 years ago, and I was fairly successful out of the gate. I pretty rapidly grew it to $1 million business, but I got stuck there. I couldn't seem to break beyond that $1 million range. And that's, I tried hiring coaches and consultants and training programs to get, and I just couldn't seem to get beyond it. So 25 years ago, I joined my first entrepreneur mastermind. And I remember that day vividly still.
Okay.
I walked out of that first meeting and said to myself, oh my God, I found my tribe. Like I knew after one meeting, like these people got me. They were me. They understood what I was going through. And we shared similarities of challenges and fears and frustrations. And we shared a common aspiration, which was to grow our businesses and become better entrepreneurs, right? So that's why we joined. But what happened, I was not expecting, because within about 5 or 6 months in these meetings, I'm starting to watch grown men cry as they open up and start talking about their messed up marriages and their kid problems and the anxiety and depression that the overwhelm of the business is creating in their lives. And that's not what we signed up for. But for me, as an adult, that was my first real experience with that level of human connection.
Yeah.
I didn't have that in my family. I didn't have that growing up. And so to suddenly be in this environment where people are being real, being vulnerable, getting into the real nitty gritty of problems they're solving, I was all in. And so I started joining every mastermind I could. Over the next several years, I started facilitating them and eventually creating my own. And over those next 6 or 7 years, guess what happened? My business took off. I grew it to $10 million in revenue, a couple hundred employees.
Wow.
And I sold that business in 2004. And life was good. When you sell an 8-figure business, life gets pretty good pretty quickly.
Yeah, it does.
So over the next few years, I traveled extensively. I bought 3 other businesses. I invested in a lot of different things. And then, if anyone listening has had one of those times in your life when things were going swimmingly and something out of your control happens. In 2008, what's now referred to as the Great Recession, the world financial crisis began, and over the next few years, I lost everything.
Wow. Wow, Jay.
I quite literally went from being a multimillionaire living in a mansion to living in my friend's basement, broke, bankrupt, divorced, alone, humiliated, and honestly ashamed. Because I didn't blame the world financial crisis on my situation. I made choices that took me down that path. And so there I was. After 15 years, I had built this identity as this really successful serial entrepreneur. That's how everyone knew me, including my children. And there I am sitting in that basement with nothing, not even a car. So I wish I could say that I bounced right out of that basement and jumped right back into the game. That didn't happen for me. I lived in that basement 5 months, literally, but more like 5 years figuratively, dealing with that shame, the imposter syndrome, and the fear of getting back in the game. And so I did eventually get back in that game, but I can tell you that probably the only reason that I'm still sitting here today is because of the support of one mastermind in particular that I stayed in during those time periods, because the people in that mastermind supported me in ways I can't really even articulate. It went way beyond financial and a basement to live in, a car I could borrow for several months. I mean, they literally kept me in the game. So that's masterminds for me helped me literally 10x my first business, but also saved my life during the most difficult time period I had. And that's why I'm passionate about what I do. I'm passionate about helping others, especially thought leaders and coaches, consultants, healers, to be able to create a inner circle like that, to not only to get that support for themselves, but more importantly, to bring that to clients and bring that type of safety, comfort, and support that most people can't find being the lone wolf entrepreneur.
Yeah. And what I really love what you say, because especially in today's digital world, we tend to minimize the importance of that human connection, and that is about Quantum Rebel. It's really showing up as body, mind, heart, and soul. And you can't just put them in little containers, and seeing the whole. And I remember in my case, whenever I train or coach and have 10 people in the room, I always say, yes, I'm leading this, but there's actually 11 of us. There's 11 heads of wisdom, 11 teachers, 11 facilitators, because that's where you get that amazing synergy where one and one becomes, 1,000 and more.
Yeah.
Because with one person, it's a one way. So I think, especially for the time that we're in now, also this modern age, I believe that this is what you're on to is really powerful.
So the time that we're in, I mean, obviously there's a lot of craziness and fear and uncertainty in the world as we speak.
Yeah.
But this is the isolation, the disconnection that people feel. This isn't something that's new in the last few months. In 2023, the US Surgeon General declared an epidemic in our country, and it had nothing to do with a disease or a virus. It was an epidemic of loneliness.
Yeah.
And in 2024, the World Health Organization created an entire commission to address the global crisis of social isolation and loneliness.
Yeah.
People are starving for that human connection. right?
Yeah.
And then when you think about the thought leader world, the coaching, healers, consultants, the AI, we're in an information overload age, and AI is devaluing all content, information, and training, because AI right now, I mean, think where it's going to be in a few years from now. Right now, AI can train you on anything you want in the world for free. So in a few years, why are people going to be buying programs that are based on content and training? Every single day, the value of information content training goes down, while every single day, exponentially, the value of human connection goes up. And so to me, this is the future of the coaching thought leader industry, is creating these small tribes where people feel like they belong, where people get that human connection and feel part of something bigger than themselves, which I know is exactly what you're building here with the Quantum Rebels.
Yeah. And I what you say is, so the content will always remain important, but you're integrating it with that depth of connection. And that has been one of my pet peeves with the training industry or the coaching industry. It's a lot of times, they'll say, okay, these are the steps, there are your modules, and you have either a weekly or a bi-weekly session, Q&A, but when you're going in implementation, you're like, okay, what do I do now? Because that wasn't quite what was written there. So this is my situation now. So how do I deal with this specific situation? And that's what I find. What you're saying is that space where you can just bring your thing, yourself, and your stuff there.
Yeah.
And have the leader and everyone to look at that and go through that. That is extremely powerful.
There's two sort of lenses that I encourage people to look at in your programs and you're working with clients, etc. There's informational transformation, right? Which is the content, the training, the modules. Then there's experiential, which is more of what is the experience like in the program. And that's where I start to enter the picture in terms of making your programs much more experiential. And then there's transformational, which is the highest level, where people are really getting transformation because they're in this safe container with support, with accountability, with other people contributing to their success.
Yeah.
To me, that's where the magic comes in. The other lens that I look at it is you can have intellectual capital, which again, the training, the content, the learning pieces of it. Then you have social capital, which is what many group programs do deliver. There's a social aspect to it. You get to know some of the members. You sort of, you're in a Facebook group, right? That's social capital, where you're having those sort of surface level interactions. But the real magic comes in at relationship capital. Because when you build relationships with other people in a program, going through it together, supporting, helping each other, that literally feels like now you have a family. Yeah. Now you've got that posse, that inner circle, that board of advisors for your life or your business. And one of the important aspects of that, and this is part of the culture that you build in the container, is that people need to be taught right from the beginning, before they even enter the program, that you check the egos at the door and that you approach the others with respect that are in the group, right? That ties into everything from showing up on time, contributing, showing up for the meetings, doing the work, right? All of that adds to that relationship capital that's built over time. And the ideal position to be in, if you're running a program like this, is that there's no end. It doesn't end.
Wow.
That mastermind that I joined, it was actually the first one and the one that sustained me through that time. I was in that mastermind for 17 years.
Wow.
Because
Wow.
every month I got huge value by going to those meetings, learning from those people, building that relationship capital. And that's true of many of the masterminds I've been in over the years. Like, I refer to those members as brothers and sisters. There are
Okay.
people that I'll answer the phone for 24/7, any time of night or day. Even if I haven't talked to them in 3 years, if one of those people that I was in a mastermind with would call me, that's the phone call I'd pick up instead of
Yeah.
sending to voicemail. And that's what we're trying to build.
That's powerful, and it reminds me of the first. We opened this season with Laura Gerrits. She's the founder of Holistic Business University, and she talks about really bringing soul into the boardroom, soul to our business, and it has nothing to do with religion, dogma, or anything. It really has to do with what you're talking about. Is finding that human connection at the deepest level while we're doing our business, so that it's not this stressful experience and journey. We know that even when things may be challenging, we have our group that we can turn to, and that we have that support while we're walking the journey.
Yeah.
So that is extremely powerful. That is powerful.
Yeah, we're talking here today mostly about thought leaders and coaches and consultants, but there is an entire model out there built around this idea that relationships internally within a company, forming friendships with peers within a company, can have a huge impact on retention and productivity. This is measured. Like, this isn't just a theory.
Yeah.
And there are companies like Google that do this, where they are forming internal peer masterminds for people at the same level, all operating in different silos. Because if in a corporate environment, when you think about it, almost every 95% of the meetings that people go to in a corporate environment, either there's a superior or a subordinate in those meetings with you.
Yeah.
You don't have that opportunity for that peer support. And that's an entire model in itself.
Wow. But it's beautiful that the principles are there and work across industries. So what if we have that the person that goes like, this sounds really great. I've done my group promos. I'm going to start doing this, Jay. Why would we want somebody like you to help us, coach us, to set this up? What is the value of having someone like you who's been there, done that,
So,
walking next to us?
yeah. You don't have to be a rocket scientist to create a mastermind, but you can certainly shortcut the process of doing it and not make a lot of mistakes that I've made over those 25 years. And there is a lot of nuance to how you create the container, first of all, so that you build the right culture, so that you're attracting the right people in and building it for long term, versus the sort of common way people will come into a program is like, okay, it starts and ends here, like this is fixed length, short term, etc. So part of the magic is being able to understand how to create a container, how to build the group dynamic within that container, which involves facilitation skills, to be able to create that environment for the long term where people will stay with you for years. That's the one big piece of it. The other big piece of it is figuring out who are the right people to invite into the container.
Yeah.
That not only is about the sort of selection process, the narrowing down of the right fit avatar, in my terminology, the purple fish. Who are the right people to invite into that container where it's not going to be like a white blood cell entering the red stream, right? Because when you bring a single wrong person invited into a mastermind container like that can literally destroy the group.
Wow.
And so to be able to understand and anticipate some of those things and build it in a way which attracts the right people into it. And that's kind of the third piece, where it might be a good idea to get some help, because marketing and selling these types of programs, again, there's some nuances to it. They're a little different than marketing a course or a one-on-one coaching package and that kind of thing. You've got to be able to position yourself as someone they want to follow and sign up for something where you're going to be leading it, right? We all do that as thought leaders, coaches, consultants. We put ourselves out there and hopefully make ourselves attractive to the people we want to help. But then there's the second piece of it, which is selling the concept of the group experience.
Yeah.
And so I'll refer back to that first mastermind that I joined. If somebody had come to me when I was looking to get my business beyond that $1 million range and said, hey, come join this group. It's like a kumbaya group of entrepreneurs where everybody's going to support each other and talk about their marriages and their anxiety and depression, I would have been like, nope, yeah, I'm out.
Tomorrow.
I got my business to worry about. I'm not going there. Right. So that's where kind of the nuance around the sales and marketing comes in.
And I think one thing that you also say is the whole character and nature of this is because the human connection, the smallness, it makes it very exclusive, which really naturally lends you to also make it a higher ticket offer. And that leads to the no longer chasing, because this is value to have this exclusive small group where you're seen, you can show up as you are, and you know that you're held.
So the position that you can put yourself in is that instead of I don't have to convince you to join my mastermind, tell me why I should let you in. So I run 3 masterminds of my own. 2 of the 3 are for the small, intimate cohorts. In one of those masterminds right now, I've got 1 spot open. Do you think that I need to chase clients and build a big marketing funnel? And no, it's more like, who's the right person to fill that spot? And this applies, even if you've got 3 or 4 spots left, right?
Yeah.
But you put yourself in this situation where you flip the selling script, and instead of you being in that push energy, I need more clients, where can I find somebody else? You flip it and you sit from a place where it's like, no, I have to be protective of the people that I already have brought into this. I have to be protective of the culture, the container, the safety that I'm providing. So, yeah. Convince me you belong.
Wow. And I think that trust is the new currency, right? And that's what you build in there.
I'm so glad you mentioned that, because you're right. I mean, that's the other thing that is so critical these days, and why so many coaches and healers and thought leaders struggle is because they're not focused enough on that trust issue.
Yeah.
We are in the trust economy at this moment, and it's not difficult to look at what's happening in the world and see how trust has been eroded in many aspects of our society. AI is making that even more difficult every day. Is that picture real? Is that video real? Who do you trust?
All right. So if somebody wanted to work with you, how do they get into your world, Jay? Do you have something coming up that we can share?
Yeah. So first of all, I'm pretty easy to find on the internet, Jay Fairbrother, on most of the platforms.
Okay. We'll put it in the show notes.
Yeah. My website is sixfiguremasterminds.com. If you'd like to learn more, I have a free ebook about the fewer, better, longer mastermind model. That's the link that is shown right there on the screen.
Okay.
And then I also do 3 events a year. These are virtual 3-day events called the 6-Figure Masterminds Bootcamp. These events, that's where you came into my world, right?
Yeah.
These events, and you can speak to it, these events are designed for people regardless of where you are on the path. You might already be a 7-figure entrepreneur and you're finally adding that mastermind component to your business, Or you might be a fairly new entrepreneur in that sort of struggle phase, thinking you have to launch these low ticket things and don't have the credibility, authority yet. And in these 3 days, we literally walk you through exercises that not only build your confidence, but really narrow in on what kind of program you can create, because you should never create a cookie cutter mastermind following, some standard format. You really need to put the pieces of the puzzle together so that it takes advantage of your superpowers, delivers the most transformation for your clients. Then we help you really get clear on who that purple fish is, who is that right fit avatar for you. Then we walk through exercises that help you build a simple funnel so that you don't need the thousands of people coming into your system, and you don't have one of those sales funnels with the 34 branches that make your head spin, and work through exercises so you walk out of the 3-day event with a plan and next steps that you can take to actually put this into action and start building this.
Okay. All right. So this was amazing. And we're not at the end because we're going to be going backstage. So for those of us that are joining us, that if you haven't registered yet, please do so, because that's where we get to meet our visionaries in an intimate space, so we can ask those questions, kind of start having the mastermind feeling where you're with one another and feeling it, the effect of what it means to have human connection in the way we show up in our world, life, leadership, and business. Thank you, Jay. It has been an absolute pleasure.
I'll leave you with this last thought.
Yes, please.
Speaking of how you show up, imagine the world where you wake up in the morning and it's your mastermind day, and you wake up jumping out of bed, excited, because you get to work with the people you hand selected, the people you attracted, the people you're passionate about helping, the people who are there to help each other. That's why I love what I do, is because when I can wake up and be in total alignment and total integrity and passionate about not only what I'm doing, but who I'm working with, everything else is easy.
Wow. That is so powerful. I think the world needs more of that, being able to wake up and really be inspired about, how you show up with your clients together. So on that note, thank you, Jay. For those of us that are going to meet us backstage, we look forward to seeing you. And then we'll just say, until next time, everyone. You've been listening to Quantum Rebel Visionary Voices Unleashed. These are the voices re-architecting what's next, not through hustle, but through harmony, not through domination, but through sacred resonance. If your soul whispered yes, you already belong. Subscribe, share, return each week. And if you feel the resonance, come backstage with us in the Quantum Rebel VIP Lounge immediately following the show. Because this isn't just a podcast. It's the uprising of a new era, the quantum era of light. And together, we're shaping a luminous, awakened future from the inside out. Let's breathe that in, feel the shift, and remember, you were born for this.